All right, welcome back, everybody, to the brain injury discussion. We have had a good year of brain injury discussions already. Would encourage you to like, subscribe, and comment. And today we're going to be talking about probably a lesser known brain injury, but it's coming up due to springtime and summer. And this brain injury is mosquito-borne brain injuries. Now, you might be thinking, well, Jay, I don't know if I can get a concussion from a mosquito. And you would probably be correct. However, if a mosquito stings you and it is carrying something, that might become an issue. So, with that being said, let's get into this. Let's unpack it. And again, these are just a few examples. Again, sources in the description below. If you have any questions, it might be good to check with your local health department. But let's get into this. So, the mosquito has been well known to be what's called a vector. So, it is a form of transmission um, from person to person, from person to mosquito to person. And so we should look at the process of how that works. It can carry stuff like bacteria, viruses, and including parasites. So these are the three things that you need to be worried about when it comes to mosquitoes. There are 26 confirmed species, and again, sources down here. Feel free to give them a look. That are carriers of these mosquito-borne diseases. And again, mosquitoes can is a source of many outbreaks and illnesses. You probably heard some in the news, and I've been to foreign countries where mosquitoes were a problem, and it was a possibility that you could get infected with something by a mosquito. But if we look into how does this actually work? How does a mosquito actually carry something that could be an acquired brain injury? Well, we have the uninfected mosquito here, and it bites someone who is infected. Mosquito then carries it to someone who is, in fact, uninfected. And due to the transmission process, it then, after the person, starts finding that themselves are ill, they are now an infected person. And again, we've seen this multiple times with stuff like malaria, where it goes from someone, mosquito gets someone sick, they feed off of someone who's sick, and then they carry it to the next uninfected person who eventually becomes sick. And then, as you can tell, this cycle starts over again. And so it's kind of bad that this graphic is not a circle, but it can certainly be a circle where they continually replicating the virus within themselves and spreading it around. The purpose of a virus is to replicate, not to kill someone. So, or at least, but it can be fatal depending on what illness you have. So, most mosquito stings just painful, but sometimes they can carry nasty diseases, and we're going to get into a few of those. So, let's talk about Eastern equine encephalitis, or triple E, or triple EV. So, Eastern equine encephalitis, let's break down that word for simplicity's sake. Eastern, so we all know that's a compass orientation. Equine, which is a horse, or it's Latin for horse. And we all have heard encephalitis, so ceph being the brain, and itis, which is inflammation. So if you hear itis, inflammation, think inflammation. So we're thinking inflammation of the brain. So that's how you read that kind of medical terminology, and it's good to know that. So EEE or EEEV is the most severe arboviral in the United States. And so if we break down this word, arboviral, arbo, which is, nature, viral, virus. So again, this is a virus. Um, Viruses have different characteristics for the most part from bacteria and parasites. So again, virus. It causes that brain swelling, which is the encephalitis. It's been present for a very long time, 1831, and it is possibly fatal. Again, can be very dangerous. It is also very seasonal, so we're looking at May, October, summertime when mosquitoes are around, and it's on the east coast of the United States. So again, this is out there. This is prevalent. This can happen. And how this translates, and better described from our last slide, we have the circle, the infectious circle. So mosquito, gets the virus and stings the bird, which gets spreads the virus to the mosquito. And this is called viral amplification and maintenance. So this is the cycle that it goes in. It goes from like bird that has the virus to mosquito that carries the virus to the next bird, and it becomes the cycle. What happens is that when a mosquito bites the bird and is now called that term again that I mentioned in a couple slides ago called the vector. Again, that is the bridge between the bird and either the horse, which again, we all love Mr. Ed, right? Or the human. So it can go into what's called a dead end host. So again, it doesn't replicate. We can't spread this, but it's a dead end host, which is a mammal. So usually it's a horse, which again, they're outside a lot. And then humans, we're outside a lot. And so if we combine all this together, usually this cycle would be just a cycle where it would just go around and around and round. But a mosquito then breaks that cycle and bites a mammal like a human who has a brain or a horse that has a brain. Horses have brains, I think. They do have brains, just being humorous. But if they bite a human and they become infected with Eastern equine encephalitis, you can expect brain swelling and it can be fatal. So obviously, get them to the hospital if they start showing symptoms. And I would encourage you to look up those symptoms. But that is one way, that's one kind of a brain injury that can happen by a mosquito. So that's one of them. Let's look into another. St. Louis encephalitis or St. Louis encephalitis or SLE. So St. Louis encephalitis. And again, this graphic isn't necessarily the best, but it's kind of the same idea of EEEV, where you have the mosquito and the bird. They're in that cycle where they are just passing the virus from one to another. And then that mosquito then stings a person. And let's call him Bob for a second. Bob here, if stung by a mosquito who is not in this cycle, wouldn't get St. Louis encephalitis. But if that mosquito then goes and stings Bob, um, there's a chance that Bob could contract St. Louis encephalitis. And again, we've talked about that word, encephalitis. That is brain swelling. Itis, swelling. Ceph, head. So it is something that it can be done to humans. It usually has a low fatality rate, but low doesn't mean impossible. Low means low, but it can happen. It is similarly related to other encephalitis. So again, like EEE, Japanese encephalitis virus, West Nile virus, it's related to those. And so again, it's a bacterium. It's also virus, not bacteria, virus. And the symptoms are dizziness, headaches, and fatigue, which again kind of mirrors what you see with triple E, but this is still something serious and we should take seriously because, yes, this could be very dangerous. Low fatality does not mean not fatal at all. So this could be fatal to someone. But then again, that's why I'm encouraging, continuing reading. That way you can know how to see these things. So let's talk a little bit about prevention. And this kind of brings me back to my old Navy days, really, where you treated your uniforms and you sprayed out DEET, which, not to get into the abbreviation, but that is an insect repellent. And because mosquitoes are a insect, they're usually repelled by DEET, which is a form of insect repellent that keeps the mosquitoes away. One more practical, probably easier method to prevent yourself being stung by a mosquito is to cover your arms and legs. So again, wearing long sleeves. If it's a hot, sunny day in the summer, maybe roll those sleeves down, maybe wear some pants. Um, Again, open skin is more likely to be stung by a mosquito than skin that is clothed. So might be a good idea to wear something light that's long sleeved, and especially if you're around um, other ways of getting bug bites, that would probably be a smart decision. In certain areas, mosquito netting makes sense where, okay, you step into a place and there's a net that doesn't allow a mosquito to penetrate. And we should also talk about standing water, which talks about the reproduction of those mosquitoes. So again, window screens, great idea. Insect repellent, great idea. Long sleeves, long pants, great idea. But what about this standing water? How does that apply to mosquitoes? Well, mosquitoes will lay eggs in standing water. So if you have something like in this picture, you got tires and you also have some sort of a water container. You want to dump that out in order to prevent the eggs from, being laid there. Or if they're already laid there, you can stop their reproduction cycle so you don't get Eastern equine encephalitis or St. Louis encephalitis. Um, and again, these are preventative measures. I would rather people remove standing water, get some bug repellent, use screens on windows and doors, and wear long sleeves, long pants, be a little bit more uncomfortable, than get Eastern equine encephalitis because it can be deadly. So, and again, these are practical measures that I think about everyone can take. You can find insect repellent everywhere. Well, with that being said, what does this lead me to conclude? Well, like many other videos before, I like to stress prevention. Prevention is vitally important. If we can prevent this from happening in the first place, that'd probably be the best course of action. So prevention, let's prevent this. Again, DEET or insect repellent. Um, Remove the standing water so you eliminate the source of the reproduction of the mosquito. Also, wear long sleeves, long pants. Uh, those are good ideas. Again, mosquitoes can be hard to detect, and these encephalitis diseases can be hard to detect as well, but they can be detected. They just might be difficult to find. But that's why it's important to be aware, especially if you're on the East Coast, about what to look for when it comes to triple E. It can also be localized. For example, triple E can outbreak in one of the coastal states. You might not have to worry about it as much if you're inland, but it can still happen. Preparedness obviously goes a long way, and some of them can, in fact, be fatal. That's why it's important to do the prevention because I, I prefer having people be survivors. But that's just me. But then again, um, that's a lot of information to unpack, and this is just a few of the snippets of information that you can find on mosquito-borne illnesses. I would encourage you to do your own research. But with that being said, I think that about concludes it. There are my references. They'll be in the sources and the description below. Tell me if you learned something interesting, or maybe that there's something new that you found out about mosquitoes. Or maybe you want to tell me about a story of where you got a mosquito bite. That's up to you. But feel free to check out these references. And of course, if you would be gracious enough to give us a thumbs up and maybe hit that subscription as well. But with that being said, I believe that's it. Everyone have a wonderful day.